Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I am going to be talking about the first 6 months of my parenting journey. I saw someone else do this type of video where they listed their expectations that they had going into having a baby and the reality of it, and it was really interesting. At the time I was pregnant when I saw this video, so it was interesting to see that perspective of what it might look like for me, or it might not look like that at all. To follow that up, as a disclaimer, I am not in any way saying that your experience is going to be just like my experience, because everybody's baby is different and everybody's experience is different. So these expectations versus reality are all my own experience. I am not trying to tell anybody what they should be doing with their child, and on that other end of it, I am not asking you to tell me what I should be doing with my child. I don't know about anybody else, but I don't particularly like getting unsolicited advice. It is overwhelming to me with just the amount of information that there is out there on how to raise your kid. I don't need any more added to that. Before I get off onto a tangent, I am going to start getting into the different expectations. I have 8 different expectations that I am going to talk about in this video. This first expectation, I'm laughing at this because I was so naive before I had a baby. I had no idea what was coming, and you will probably laugh at this too. But my first expectation was the newborn stage is going to be easy. Now, I thought this because I was thinking babies, you don't really do much with them. They eat, they sleep, and they poop. And that's all you do with them for the first little bit of life. So I was thinking that, that's going to be easy, but once they get older, it is going to get more and more complicated. I was so wrong about that expectation. The reality is that the newborn stage was the hardest time of my life for a number of reasons, which I will get into later in this video. Some of those reasons why the newborn stage was so difficult for us. There were issues with her weight gain when she was young, so that was a huge stress on me. And she was also a colicky baby, so she was crying a lot, very gassy, very uncomfortable. Mentally, it really took a toll on me, and I am grateful that I had as much help as I did, but there were times where I just felt so isolated. I talked a little bit about how I was feeling postpartum in my last video, but during that period of time was mentally my most challenging. My next expectation was that I was going to be so sleep deprived that I was going to be unable to function. Which is kind of funny that I thought that, because I was thinking, oh, the newborn stage is going to be easy. I was also told that I was going to not have any sleep, that the baby was going to be up most of the night. So I was in my head thinking that, okay, I am just going to be up all the time, taking care of the baby, and I'm not going to get any sleep, and I'm just not going to be able to do anything. The reality is, I did have some exhausting days and a few all-nighters, but it wasn't nearly as much as I thought it was going to be, and I did get some sleep. So for the first month of her life, she slept in a bassinet in our room, and we kind of tended to her sort of back and forth, but obviously when she woke up, she woke both of us up, so neither of us were really getting much sleep. And then Dan, right from the time that we got home from the hospital, he started a new job. So he needed to have sleep so that way he could function at his work. And I needed to get sleep because I needed to be awake during the day so I could tend to her. That wasn't working for us, just kind of having her be in our room. So when she was about a month old, we moved her into the nursery. And that was the best thing that we could have done for our sanity. I know that experts say that you should keep the baby in the same room as you for the first 6 months, but there was just no way that we were going to be able to do that. We all got so much better sleep when she was in a separate room. And then what we ended up doing was that we split the night into shifts for Dan and I. So how we did it was I pumped at around 6, and then we had dinner after that. So after dinner, I would go to bed, and this would be around 7 p.m. or so, and Dan would stay up and be on call for the baby, which generally she got up maybe once during his shift. She generally slept better during that time frame. For whatever reason, she slept pretty well. Then I would get up at around 11:30 and pump when I got up, and then Dan would head to bed at midnight, and I would be on call for the rest of the night. So generally I would try to just go back to sleep when I could, but the time frame between midnight and 6 a.m., she was usually fighting sleep. This was where I had a few all-nighters where I was just rocking with her all night. She was crying, she was gassy, she was hungry. It was just chaos, and sometimes I could get her back down to sleep, but it would only last for maybe about 30 minutes at a time before she would get up again. On top of that, I was trying my best to pump every 3 hours, and I will talk more about that later on in this video, but it was just a lot. I basically couldn't sleep, but at least I was able to have that stretch from 7 p.m. till about 11:30 to sleep. That guaranteed me at least 4 hours of sleep. And then Dan could sleep for about 6 hours, so that way he could function at his work. And then I would say by the time she hit, I want to say 2 months or 2.5 months, something in her switched and she started sleeping much better at night. But then during the day, she would hardly nap. I just remember one time, I remember pumping at like 2 or 3 and then falling asleep on the couch. And then I didn't wake up again until 5:30. And I nearly panicked because I was like, oh my God, is she okay? But she was fine. She had just woken up at 5:30 because she was hungry. So that was pretty shocking when that happened. And then eventually that happened more and more, and then she finally started sleeping so much better at night. My next expectation is another kind of laughable one where I just really did not know what to expect, and now looking back I'm like, what was I thinking? My expectation was that I would be able to establish a schedule quickly. So I was thinking that I would be able to get her on a schedule quickly if I did it early enough, and that she would get used to the schedule and follow the schedule. I'm someone who is very time-oriented, schedule-oriented. I love my schedules. I love my routines. So having a baby kind of put a toll on me in that aspect too, because I could not follow a schedule for myself, let alone put her on a schedule. So the reality is, it took months before she got herself into established, not really schedule, I want to say routine. And as soon as something sticks, something will throw it off. Whether that be a sleep regression, learning a new skill, or teething, something will throw off that routine. It was quite upsetting to me that I could not follow a schedule. On social media and in books, I saw like sample schedules that had like timestamps, and I was like, I'm gonna follow one of those schedules. But really, take those with a grain of salt. Not all days look the same. Social media in that aspect is not realistic when someone says that they have like a schedule like that. Like, no, that's not how it is. We just kind of follow a routine based on how long she can tolerate being awake. So right now she's 7 months old, so I am a little late making this video. But right now she is 7 months old. She can tolerate staying awake for about 2.5 hours at a time. So right now we're kind of in between, like, transitioning. Sometimes she only does 2 naps, sometimes she does 3, depending on the length of the naps. And during her wake windows, like, we follow this pattern of she wakes up, she has a bottle, she plays either on her mat, or I sing to her, I read to her, we go outside, do whatever, and then we get ready for a nap once it's towards the end of that wake window. But like I said, some things can throw it off. She's had a couple sleep regressions when she was learning a new skill, like learning how to roll. Currently, we're going through her learning how to crawl, so that's been great. And she's also teething, so that's also great. My next expectation has to do with sleep. So my expectation was that it was going to take several months before we could get Holly to sleep through the night. I heard many stories of parents who have babies that don't sleep through the night and they're toddlers. So I was concerned, like, that Holly was not going to sleep through the night for a very long time. So again, it kind of connects to that expectation of not getting enough sleep. But the reality is she has had some times where she has slept through the night, but not consistently. Typically, she still gets up once or twice per night, but it's pretty obvious that she's hungry. She'll have her bottle and go right back to sleep. She's awake for maybe 15 minutes at most. Other than that, she sleeps very well from start to finish. And there have been a couple times where she has only woken up once, or she has slept through the whole night without any wake-ups at all. Obviously, just not consistency. But I would say, on average, it's probably twice a night that she wakes up. And usually Dan will get her once, and then I will get her the next time. My next expectation is that I was going to avoid screen time. I have read so many things that say you should not expose your child to screens until they are at least 18 months or even 2 years old, that it was going to be bad for their development and all of that, and I get it. Totally get it. Did I stay away from screen time? I did not. The reality is, I did not. You do what you gotta do to get stuff done around the house. That being said, I do limit it. I don't plop her in front of a TV for hours. I do maybe max 30 minutes. Usually when I need to do something like put the laundry away or unload the dishwasher, doing chores that take me a little while to do is when I will put on something for her. We've watched Hey Bear. We've watched Bluey. She absolutely loves Bluey. She gets so excited when the theme song comes on. So yes, I do screen time, but I do try to limit it as much as I can. But sometimes there are just some things that I need to get done, and I need her to be doing something else and not have to rely on me for entertainment all the time. My next couple of expectations have to do with my breastfeeding journey. So my expectation for that was that I was going to exclusively breastfeed and then start pumping once I was getting ready to go back to work. But the reality is I ended up combo feeding. I was pumping from the start and trying my best to breastfeed. This was all due to the circumstances of her birth and also with myself as well, my body. Holly was born premature. She was barely premature. She was 36 weeks and 6 days, but she had a severe fetal growth restriction, I think is what it's called. So she was going to be very, very small, and they discovered it quite late into my pregnancy, and then I ended up having to give birth a couple days after that. I talk all about that in my birth story. Because she was so small, she had to go into the NICU, and they tried giving her a bottle. She didn't latch onto a bottle, so they put her onto a feeding tube, and I really wasn't given much of a chance to breastfeed, but when I was given the chance, she just wouldn't latch at all. She was very small. She had a tough time latching. And then on my end, I have flat nipples. Trying to breastfeed with flat nipples is difficult anyways. So that was just another layer of difficulty that I had. So I was pumping in the hospital every 3 hours. Once I got home, I dropped one of those so that way I could get a stretch of sleep. And then soon after that, I dropped another one because mentally I just couldn't do it. And then eventually I dropped down to 5, and that seemed to be my number that I was okay with doing, just pumping 5 times a day and not at all overnight. But as a result of that, my supply was not the greatest. This leads me into my next expectation, that I would be able to feed breast milk only. The reality is I ended up having to supplement with formula, I want to say maybe as early as 2 months in, just because of me mentally not being able to handle exclusively pumping, and the fact that my supply was not very high and she was eating a lot more than what I could provide. And if I were to pump after every single time she ate, I would be tethered to that pump. I would not be able to come off of it, basically. So finally I just gave in, and I was like, we need to supplement with formula. And she has done absolutely fine with formula. She doesn't really have a preference over one or the other. So we tend to do maybe like 2 or 3 bottles of breast milk a day, and then the rest formula, just so that way I don't run out of breast milk. I am currently weaning more. I only pump about 4 times a day right now, and pretty soon I'm going to drop it down to 3 because she is also starting solids at this point. And then I have one more expectation, and that one was also due to the circumstances of her birth. That expectation was that Holly would not need a ton of newborn clothes, that she would likely get into 3-month clothes very quickly, just based on things that I have read, is that, you know, babies outgrow the newborn clothes really, really quickly. Like I had mentioned, Holly was very, very small. So the reality was we needed to go out and buy preemie clothes for her when we found out how small she was going to be. And she was swimming in those preemie clothes. She wore preemie clothes for the first month of her life before we transitioned to newborn clothes. And then she was in newborn clothes until she was about 4 or 5 months old. Right now, she is almost 7 months old, and we are still in 3-month clothes. We are starting to transition into 3 to 6 month clothes at the moment, but they're still a little bit big on her. But at the moment, the 3-month clothes fit her perfectly. So those were all of my expectations for the first 6 months of being a mom and what had actually happened. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It felt really good to sit in front of the camera again. I know I've been very MIA on my channel, but that is because I have very short periods of time that I am able to work on videos. I'm surprised that I even filmed this video in one take. It is almost time for Holly to get up, but she managed to take almost a 2-hour nap, so that was great. I was able to sit down and film this video. I will probably do another one of these for the second half from month 7 to 12. If you like this video, be sure to give it a like. Make sure that you are subscribed so you don't miss any new videos from me. I hope to be posting a bit more consistently, but you know how it is. I'm a mom. Babies are unpredictable, as we have discussed in this video. You can also follow me on Instagram. I tend to post more real life things, and I post Holly a lot more on there. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, the link is down below. I will talk to you guys in my next video. Bye.